in my book, I talk about mental agility.
Mm-hmm.
But mental agility is the capacity for a person to see a problem from different perspectives, but also embracing the values and principles of that person. For example, imagine I wanted to solve a problem. And this is, you mentioned also value, how to create value. When we are talking about an IT team, a software team, plus minus people are coming from the same background, software. And then if you give a problem to those guys, plus minus, they're going to solve the problem in the same way. Maybe the outcome is going to be different, but they use the same tools. The problem is when we try to expand agility to the rest of the organization, we have the value stream, but then we start having something that is slightly different. We have teams where maybe many people inside the team are not from software. Maybe we can have some person from the financial area, maybe we can have a lawyer, maybe we can have coming from completely different areas of expertise. And the issue here is that the way people solve their problems are different because there is a massive influence between what you learned in the past or what you studied and how you solve the problems. For example, a lawyer is going to solve a problem in a completely different way, even if we're not talking about law, than a software engineer. So what happened is we have a value stream, how you produce value from, someone comes up with an idea until you produce that. And then in that team, you're going to have people from different areas. And all these people have different levels of what I call mental agility and perspectives also. Imagine a lawyer with a software person, a lawyer that always being working on their own. And this person do not want to work with a team. How you do that? How you solve that problem? Well, you can force the person to work in a team. That's not a good idea, we know already. But we can do something else, which is increase mental agility. So this person has been always seeing the problems in a certain way. So there are techniques, I explain the techniques in the book, which allow people to increase how they solve problems. And that increases also something called neuroplasticity, which is how the neurons connect. Basically, the idea is that each person can increase the mental agility by doing something called reframing. Reframing is a possibility for one individual to see a problem from a different perspective, but also embracing the values. Because, for example, I'm a software engineer, and I say, okay, I try to see from the perspective of the lawyer in the team, that person is a lawyer in the team, the problem. But this is not going to increase mental agility. In order to increase mental agility, you also need to embrace the values and principles that this person has. So it's basically you transform yourself temporarily into that other person. And then you try to see the problem from that perspective. What we know with neuroscience of change says is that this is called a frame. So I have a frame, the lawyer has another frame. A frame is how we solve the problem plus the values and principles from that person. The more frames you are able to try, the more flexible you become. So what we try to do with teams and with enterprise agility is try to increase mental agility in the employees in the organization. My theory is that any organization where employees have lower levels of mental agility, they're going to struggle to adapt to the market, they're going to struggle to form teams, and they're going to struggle to work together. And then we have a specific techniques that we can also use it during other activities in order for people to increase their mental agility.
Fascinating. I can think of one thing which relates to this, and this is from Steve Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about going beyond the win-win when people have 2 different opinions or 2 different perspectives or 2 different sets of knowledge or experience. And there's one level where there's a win-win, where they both get an advantage from it, but we can get beyond the win-win by creating a synergy of two different experiences. And this would involve a high degree of, as you say, neuroplasticity, being able to see things from another person's point of view and actually credit and value that. It's, I believe it's also from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's like, say me and you, Dean and Erich, are in disagreement, and that's actually quite a good thing. I can say to you, Erich, tell me how you see things in your way, through your eyes, through your experience. Fantastic, we see things differently. I want to frame my mind from your point of view, and that's really, really interesting. And there's something else which comes to mind as well, is I think John Stuart Mill, who says that he who doesn't know the other person's argument knows little of their own. Which is really interesting, is that if I don't know your side, your perspective, your argument, or your case, if I don't know that very well, then I don't know very much of my own. So it's being able to create that synergy between the two different areas and have that in a professional sense, that conflict on the problem of an opportunity rather than the individual.
And it's very important to understand that it's easy when the values and principles of the other person are similar. But for example, in my case, I always believe in diversity, and I always believe that, you know, I have certain values that for me are good. But if I have to reframe and try to think as a person who, for example, is very racist and maybe do not like diversity, then if I have to do that kind of reframing, it's going to be very tough. And what happens is, when you do a reframing where the values of the other person are opposite or different than yours, but completely different, then there is more activation of an area of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala basically activate when there is some risk. They can detect some risk. And then it floods your brain with certain chemicals and prepares you for war. The problem is that when the amygdala activates, the amygdala is telling you, for example, Dean, look, don't take those values, are very dangerous for you, don't go in that direction. And the problem is that your amygdala is going to make things harder. It's good because it's trying to protect you from embracing values that are against you. But in order to increase mental agility, you need to make sure that you understand how your brain works, you understand how the amygdala works, and what's happening in your body, and how you know if your amygdala is activating, because otherwise you're not going to be able to place on the other shoes, the other person's shoes. You're not going to be able to do this reframing exercise. And many times we do with CEOs from companies this reframing exercises where we try to explain to them and try to make sure that they try very, very hard frames from people with completely different values, and they find it very challenging and take weeks until they feel comfortable with this. But what we find after is that when they are able to do it and they start increasing their mental agility, then they are able to empathize better with people. They are able to come up to different solutions. They listen more. They are better leaders.